Basically, the audit report, these are your financial statements. These are the reports that Jim generates on your behalf. It's a little different format to fit the requirements of the state and the national standards. My responsibility here is to issue the 2 letters that are bound in there, which is basically my opinion as to whether your financial statements are accurate or not. And both opinions are what's called unqualified or clean opinions that says your financial statements are in fact accurate. I found no problems and no exceptions in there. The first letter refers to all of the various financial statements. The letter near the end of the report, the supplemental letter, that one refers to 2 areas. One is on compliance, whether you are in compliance with various laws, rules, regulations, loan agreements, things of that nature. And in that letter, I found no instances of non-compliance. The other portion of that letter refers to internal control findings, and there's almost always some internal control findings, especially now. There's some new standards out there. When you have a relatively limited number of staff, you don't have a half a dozen accountants working in your office, there's always some lack of checks and balances. And so there's some findings here. One of them refers to your fixed asset schedule, which has been a finding for several years. It's time that we update that. It has not been updated probably for 10 to 15 years. It should be brought updated again. The other finding, which has been in there for a couple of years now, is the reconciliation of some of your what are called subsidiary ledgers, particularly your water and sewer bills to your financial statements. I was talking to Jim before the meeting tonight, and he's been working on that. He's been doing that somewhat, and he has a pretty good handle on it. But it wasn't done each of the months throughout this past year, so I listed it as a finding. And the fact that those 2 items were also listed as findings in prior years, now we have another finding, which is saying we have repeat findings. Okay, so there's those 3 items. Then a relatively new thing that came out a couple of years ago is called management discussion and analysis, which is about another 5 pages or so of information that you're supposed to generate and add to this report. We haven't done that. Like I say, it's relatively new, so I listed that as a finding that we should, sooner than later, start adding that to these financial statements. It's something that I'm not authorized to do, and I cannot do it on your behalf, but you can do it and add it in there. It's another, they say it should not be a boilerplate type of thing, but they give us 9 particular areas. They say put in 2 paragraphs on each of these 9 areas. So they give us a boilerplate format, and they say, modify it to your own circumstances. More and more municipalities are starting to do this, so it's something we should do. And then another new area is if I prepare these financial statements on your behalf, I now have to list that as an additional finding. I don't know of any auditing firm that does not do that, so we're all going to start writing them up as an additional finding. Again, you don't have the staff and the latest publications to do this, so none of these findings are what are called material weaknesses. None of them are serious. And anytime we have any of these findings, we do a little bit of additional work to make sure that there are no problems associated with them, and there were none. So they're not significant, but yet they're listed in there. Those are the 2 letters that I issued. In addition, there's a 3rd letter in the back of the report that's not bound and it's not part of the report. This again is something new, just came out within the past year and a half. When we're working on the audit, occasionally we run into differences of opinion as to whether something should be listed or not listed. Did your staff cooperate with me or not cooperate? Are you shopping around for auditors? There's a list of things that are pointed out in that letter that I now have to give the people that are in what's called in charge of governing your staff, which in this case is the city council. So if I had any problems with the people I was working with, I have to let you know. And this letter basically says I had no problems. There's a list of about 7 or 8 things there. None of them I had any problem with. But we still have to give you the letter to say were there any problems or not. So basically it's about as good of an audit report as you can get. As far as where you stand, as of June 30th, the city of Bessemer is in pretty good shape. You're certainly not wealthy by any means. I'm just going to highlight a couple numbers, and if you want to look at the pages where they come from, I'll be happy to do that. You have total assets of about $4.4 million. That's on page 5 if you want to look at that. Total assets, $4.4 million. Your liabilities are a little over $700,000, which means you have an equity, which is now the new term is called net assets. This is your positive equity of $3.7 million. Now, out of that equity, for governments, we refer to the money that's available as your fund balance. You have a fund balance of almost $1 million, $976,000. But out of that, almost $600,000 of that is set aside for particular projects, whether it be construction or whatever the case might be. So you have available about $400,000 of fund balance. That's among all your different funds. That's not a, that's what we look at to say, are you wealthy or not wealthy? And $400,000 means you're not wealthy, but yet you're not bad. You want to have at least enough of a fund balance so that if you had no income, you could get by at least 3 months throughout the year. And you're okay. You're in decent shape. You've increased your fund balance the past couple of years. You may recall back, those of you that were involved here over the years, you spent a lot of money in the downtown area, your storm sewer on Cellar Street, the industrial park area over there, Moore Street. You had a few projects that you spent a lot of money for a few years, and you pretty much drained the fund balance that you had. Okay, you were down, but now you're starting to build that fund balance up a little bit again. Okay, so you're in decent shape there. As far as how you did this past year, your general fund, you had a positive increase in your fund balance by about $90,000. That's pretty good. You were getting somewhat close to getting dangerously low there, but now you end up, your general fund has a total fund balance of about $230,000. That's comfortable on a year-by-year basis. It's not something you plan to use in the long term, but you're okay there. Your major street, you have a fund balance of about $50,000, $13,000 in your local street fund. Your DDA has about $180,000 in it. Then in your water fund, you have about $175,000 and about $76,000 in your sewer fund. So you're okay, but by no means are you rich. Any major purchases or major projects you would be looking at, you would naturally have to go out and borrow some money. But the good news is your long-term debt